Well, hello there, and welcome to room 22 with Mrs. Flanzer. And today we are going to learn how to take a digital color image and convert it to black and white in Photoshop. Okay, so let's get started. This is all assuming, of course, that you have a color image already on your computer, and that you know how to open it up in Photoshop. First thing I want to do is I want to go up to the view and go to fit on screen. Okay, we want our image as large as possible so we can see what's happening while we do this. Now, while we're over here in our layers palette or tab or window, whatever you want to call this, we move down here to the circle at the bottom. If I kind of scrunch this up, I'll let you see that. The circle that is half dark and half light, this is going to create an adjustment layer. Okay, so it's going to make a new layer with the image in whatever you choose here. We're going to choose black and white. Okay, so again, let's back this up. We're down here at the bottom of the layers palette with the create a new fill or adjustment layer option here. That's a circle that's half dark and half light. And then from here, I'm going to go down and select black and white. And boom, black and white. This is what our image would most likely look like if we use the monochrome mode on the digital camera. And this is how the file would look. Now, with having photographed it in color and bringing it into Photoshop, we have the option of changing some of these areas. If we remember, if we look here, close out that, we have a blue sky and blue in the water. We have some green areas in the center here. That is the vegetation, trees, bushes, grass, etc. Okay, and we're going to have some areas here that there's some yellow and looks like it's red. And that is why I picked this image, so that it had a variety of colors to look at and work with. So we're going to then turn this layer back on, and we're on, so have selected this layer. If we go off of here, what we do over here is totally different. So again, we're selecting our adjustment layer, and now we're going to make some adjustments. If we go to the cyan, we can move this down, okay, and we can darken up that sky. I'm going to darken it further by moving the blue down, okay? Now, in this case of a solid area with a gradation there, you have to kind of be careful or you get some lack of smoothness in your gradation. So again, we can move it a little bit further. I want to kind of deepen that up, all right? But this still has a kind of a bland look to it, from my opinion. With black and white images, I like to see black, dark areas with detail, as well as light areas, but still maintaining detail in those light areas. So we've darkened the sky, and we have some nice shadows. I'm going to move this over. We have some nice shadows here on the sides that are nice and dark, but we're still kind of, we do have some whites in the rock here where the sun is hitting it, but let's work with that green area in the center. So of course there's some, we're going to move this green dial up a bit, okay, that slider up, but there's also a lot of yellow in that area. So if we move the yellow slider up, we're going to go further. Now obviously we don't want to go max it out and lose detail, so we do want to have maintain nice detail in there, not go too far. Okay, same thing here. All right, now we've kind of added a nice feeling of lightness in that center. What about these areas in the lower corner and on some of the rocks? Okay, I think if we move the red, let's see, let's darken those areas up. Ah, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, so now we're pulling giving a nice dark area around the outside and some highlights in the center there. Very natural looking. If we look at the magenta down here, it doesn't appear to be a lot of magenta, so I'm going to leave that magenta alone. Okay, so if I decide this is, okay, this is looking pretty good, this is what I'd like to see. If we go to our history palette, we can kind of, just to kind of give an idea, this is what it looked like when we opened it, how it would look on a digital photograph of that, or a digital file that was done in monochrome mode on the camera. And here's what we've been able to create by pulling our color image into Photoshop and using our properties down here and working with each color selectively. Now I want to remind you that this is a layered file, so with the 2 layers, it's going to want to save as a PSD, which is fine. We want to save that PSD version and be able to have those layers. So if in the future we wanted to work with those, we can do that. And we're saving it in my personal photo file, save, and okay. All right. Now, however, if we were going to share this file, we're not sharing our layered file, and we also, it would be very difficult because it is very large. Photoshop files are very large. So we also want to save it as a JPEG. Now to do that, we're changing the format. We don't just change the letters up there, the PSD. We don't just do .jpg. We go down here to Photoshop, we go to JPEG, JPEG. We're changing from a Photoshop format to a JPEG format and save, okay? Click OK here. Now we have a file size that's manageable and able to be sent over the internet and posted in a Schoology assignment. Now, this was a very colorful image, and it started out looking, if we go back here to our history, we can go back and see that it started out looking like it had a nice variance of tones. This may have been a satisfying and pleasing result for you. Let's look at another image here. This is the red flower. Okay, beautiful red flower, but if we're doing this in black and white, again, we're coming over to our layers and we're looking at the create an adjustment layer. Sometimes that wants to open up, sometimes it doesn't. All right, so there, click on that circle that is half dark and half light. We go down to black and white. It does not stand for black and white. There are other types of adjustment layers you can make. Click on black and white, okay? Now in this case, it's hard to see the difference between the red flower and the foliage behind it, okay? So this is kind of a very, it's low key, which is kind of cool, but to have some control there, again, we're going to pull our lost our properties. Okay. For some reason, it had hidden the properties, so I'm on here. There we go. Okay, so selected this layer again. My properties came back up with having the colors separated out here so we can adjust these. Now, I could try to lighten the greenery behind the way we did in our last example, but you'll notice that in that upper corner here, we have an area that's in shade and it's just not lightening up. Okay, it's not as saturated in the colors. So instead, I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and let those be dark. Instead, let's lighten up that red flower, okay? So we can lighten that up a bit. See if there's some magenta in there. Not really. Not really seeing an effect. Again, we don't want to go too far with that. Let's see what's happening with the yellows. Ah, the yellows are showing up more in the foliage than in that red flower. So if we kind of pull this down, now we have a situation where we've controlled our black and white image by controlling the colors that were originally there. We've darkened up that foliage and we've lightened up the flower. Go again back to our history palette and look at the original black and white as it would look if it were photographed on monochrome mode in a digital camera versus what we have here. This has a little bit more pop to it. Okay, I actually find this area in the center of the flower most interesting. Again, we're going to save this, save as. So I've got a PSD there, and we're going to save that. But again, we want to make sure we have a manageable file without the layers that can be used, sent in email or posted in different social media or sent through school, submitted in a Schoology assignment. So I'm going to go down here to JPEG, save that, and click OK. Now, if we were to go to this personal files folder, you can see here, we can select it down, put that at the bottom. You can see that that PSD layered Photoshop file is 70 meg, whereas our black and white flower is saved as a JPEG is 4 megabyte. You have to make sure that you know what you're doing when you go to send these. If we go up and look at our Mirror Lake from Yosemite National Park, Yosemite Valley, you can see our PSD is 98 meg, where our black and white file is, JPEG file is 12 megabytes. Okay, so that would help you. I hope you find that helpful, and you can use this method to change that color image, open it in Photoshop, and convert it to a black and white.